Thursday, the U.S. sanctioned 6 Venezuelan ships accused of carrying oil from the country. Hours before, the White House announced they had intercepted a ship the American government accuses of being a part of an oil smuggling operation. The intercepted ship, named the Skipper, been tracked at transporting oil multiple times from sanctioned countries to other locations, according to the independent monitoring site tankertracker.com. The number of alleged shadow fleet ships like the Skipper has grown as the U.S. and other Western nations have increased sanctions on certain countries like Russia and Iran and on ships suspected of facilitating trade for sanctioned nations. While there's not an official count, in 2023, research firms S&P Global Market Intelligence calculated that 12% of all ships sailing did not have known owners. And energy data organizations S&P Global Energy estimates there has been a 45% growth this year. These ships use a number of practices to avoid detection, according to sanctions compliance consulting firm sanctioned.io. They can turn off their automatic identification system, which is a tracking system required by international maritime law. Shadow fleet do this when they're docking at ports in sanctioned countries or participating in a practice called ship-to-ship transfer. That's when ships exchange goods with each other out on the open sea. In the case of oil, the shadow fleet tanker will transfer its sanctioned fuel to a ship with proper registration and disguise the oil's origins. If the ships do have registration on file, they'll frequently use shell companies to hide their true ownership, and they can also register their boat in countries with weak maritime regulation like the Marshall Islands. The seized ship was flying a Guyanese flag, though local officials say it was not officially registered with the country. The tanker is currently controlled by a Nigerian-based management company and owned by a firm controlled by a Russian oil magnate. Now, the ship was originally sanctioned in 2022 for transporting Iranian oil under a different name, but has still been active since then. According to tankertrackers.com, the ship made the journey from Iran to Syria in 2024 and made trips from Iran to China between February and July of this year. CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd joins us now. So, Sam, President Trump has said Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's days are numbered. He's threatened land strikes on Venezuela. Now he sees this tanker. Where did tensions stand?
Well, Lindsay, certainly President Trump is trying to apply all kinds of pressure to the Maduro regime. Venezuela has over 300 billion barrels of oil, more than Saudi Arabia, Russia, the United States, Canada, and others. But but Venezuela only contributes 1% of the world's oil production today because of mismanagement of oil fields, sanctions, and more. At the same time, oil revenues are significant when it comes to allowing Venezuelans to function and buy necessary goods. By seizing this oil tanker and trying to further choke off oil revenues, President Trump is putting additional pressure on the Maduro regime, in addition to, of course, the significant military buildup in the waters off of Venezuela, the announcement that he had authorized covert action in Venezuela, and more. This is part of the broader pressure campaign against Maduro.
Earlier, I spoke with former JAG officer Margaret Donovan about the legality of the tanker seizure. Let's listen.
I think it's significant in this case that the rule of law appears to have been quite closely followed. The DOJ obtained a warrant from a federal judge, coordinated with interagency partners, and did this all without killing anybody.
Do you agree? And also, that said, knowing the Trump administration sanctioned 6 more vessels yesterday, do you anticipate this could happen again?
I do think this could happen again. In terms of legality, this stands in stark contrast, of course, to the military strikes against fishing vessels in the waters, allegedly carrying drugs in the waters off the coast of Venezuela. The U.S. Coast Guard was reportedly in the lead on this operation. It's important to note, Lindsay, the U.S. Coast Guard is a branch of the military, but the U.S. Coast Guard does have law enforcement authority. This, again, is in stark contrast to the military strike against these fishing boats allegedly smuggling drugs, which aren't performed by the Coast Guard, which are performed by the military, and which have a very questionable legal basis.
What does it mean that Congress has pretty much been left out of this?
There are bipartisan calls in Congress for more information on the underlying evidence supporting the strikes against these fishing vessels, as well as questions from Congress members on both sides of the aisle about the legality of President Trump's so-called non-international armed conflict against these alleged narco-terrorists. I think we should expect to see more questions from members of Congress in the weeks and months ahead.
Sam Vinograd, thank you.